Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 6 2017 NFL predictions. Well, this week for the Fanatic, it was a rarity in terms of my against the spread picking over the last two seasons. I actually was able to have two consecutive above 500 against the spread weeks. However, unfortunately, with the great 12-4 record I had last week, straight up, that dropped off a good portion due to some teams playing much better or playing well enough than I expected. So last week against the spread, I went 7-6-1 against the spread, and straight up, I went an even 500 at 7-7, and I will take that because through the first 12 games of last week, I was 5-7 straight up, which if you can break even at 500 with how the games went last week, you will take that with a good certitude. There we go. Good certainty. And now overall for the year, I am 35-39-2 against the spread, which equals about 47.3%. And straight up, I am 47-30, which equals 61%. So again, the against the spread mark, still it's still early in the year. I'm happy that at this point I'm at about 47%. I'm trying to shoot for, mid 50s, 55, 57% against the spread, and 65% straight up. So hopefully, if I can build weeks together, it will go well, and I can improve. I want to tell everybody the buys for this week. So the Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals, Dallas Cowboys, and Seattle Seahawks all have buys this week. So if you have the Bills defense, Tyrod Taylor, LaShawn McCoy, Zay Jones, Andy Dalton, AJ Green, Joe Mixon. The Bengals defense, Zeke, Dak, Cole, Dez, Russell Wilson. The Seattle defense, Doug Baldwin, Jimmy Graham. If you have any of those players, bench them this week in fantasy because they are not playing this week. And I also want to say to all my viewers, I will be starting a field placement soon for my degree. So I don't know if I'll have as much time to do as in-depth videos. My plan is still to put out these videos. But I just want to make sure to tell everybody that usually these videos, they go on for about a little under an hour, about an hour each video. But with my placement coming up here soon, I'll have to shorten that down soon, just because I'll have to be focusing on other aspects for that placement. So I just wanted to make a little PSA there for all my viewers out there. I still will be doing these videos, but they may be much shorter than all my viewers usually expect. Alright, so time for my picks and thoughts on each game, and I will talk about last week's games and what my thoughts are from last week and going into this week. Okay, so this Thursday, when the 4-1 Philadelphia Eagles go to the 4-1 Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Carolina here, -3, and Carolina straight up. And then the next game, when the 2-2 Miami Dolphins go to the 3-1 Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are 11-point favorites in this game. I like Atlanta here, -11, and Atlanta straight up. And then the next game, when the 1-4 Chicago Bears go to the 3-2 Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are 7-point favorites in this game. I like the Chicago Bears here to cover the spread, +7, but I will take the Baltimore Ravens straight up. And then the next game, when the 0-5 Cleveland Browns go to the 2-3 Houston Texans. The Houston Texans are 10-point favorites in this game. I like Houston here, -10, and Houston straight up. And then the next game, when the 4-1 Green Bay Packers go to the 3-2 Minnesota Vikings. I have not seen a spread for this game, so as I'm picking it, I'm going to assume it as a pick'em. So in this game, I'm going to take Green Bay against the spread, and Green Bay straight up. And since the next game, when the 3-2 Detroit Lions go to the 2-2 New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans Saints are 4.5-point favorites in this game. I like Detroit here, +4.5, but I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints straight up. And then the next game, when the 3-2 New England Patriots go to the 3-2 New York Jets. A battle for first place in the AFC East is on the line between the two teams that nobody would expect through 6 weeks to have a chance to be first place in the AFC East. The New England Patriots here are 9.5-point favorites in this game. The New England Patriots had a very hard time covering large spreads, especially the over a touchdown spread. So I'm actually going to give it to the Jets here. I'm going to take the Jets here plus 9.5. But I'm going to take the New England Patriots straight up. And then the next game, when the 0-5 San Francisco 49ers go to the 2-2 Washington Redskins. The Washington Redskins here are 10-point favorites in this game. I like San Francisco here plus 10, but I'm going to take the Washington Redskins straight up. And then the next game, when the 2-2 Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to the 2-3 Arizona Cardinals. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 2-point favorites in this game. I like Tampa Bay here minus 2, and Tampa Bay straight up. And then the next game, when the 3-2 Los Angeles Rams travel to Jacksonville to take on the 3-2 Jacksonville Jaguars. The LA Rams are 2.5-point underdogs in this game. I like the LA Rams here plus 2.5, and the LA Rams straight up. And then the next game, when the 3-2 Pittsburgh Steelers go to the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs at 5-0. The Kansas City Chiefs here are 4.5-point favorites in this game. I like Kansas City here minus 4.5, and Kansas City straight up. And then the next game, when the 1-4 Los Angeles Chargers go to the 2-3 Oakland Raiders. This game is another pick'em game, and I am going to take the Oakland Raiders here against the spread and straight up. And then the Sunday night game, when the 0-5 New York Giants go to the 3-1 Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are 11.5-point favorites in this game. I like Denver here minus 11.5, and Denver straight up. And finally, in the Monday night game, when the 2-3 Indianapolis Colts go to the 2-3 Tennessee Titans, this is another pick'em game against the spread. I haven't seen any lines. So at this point, I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts here against the spread, and the Indianapolis Colts straight up. Alright, so time for my thoughts on each game. Eagles at Panthers. The Philadelphia Eagles, to me right now, are the second best team in the NFL, because besides the Kansas City Chiefs and besides the Detroit Lions, maybe, just in terms of consistency, the Eagles have played 5 consistent and solid good games of football. Their only loss was against the undefeated Chiefs in a game where they, had a Hail Mary shot to tie the game, but they have played solid, consistent football. This is the defense that's gone through injuries without Ronald Darby, without Fletcher Cox, without Rodney McLeod at times, without Sidney Jones, without Lane Johnson who went out, and Wendell Smallwood didn't play against the Cardinals on Sunday. So this team has battled through a lot of injuries, and they've been able to play still very good and consistent football. I want to congratulate Carson Wentz. He had his first 3 touchdown game of his career, and he also became the first Eagles quarterback to throw 3 touchdowns in the first quarter of any game. Kenyon Barner, the guy that they signed after Darren Sproles and Smallwood went down. Kenyon Barner had a very good game. He actually had the longest punt return of his career, which I believe was 78 yards. And Nelson Aguilar, what a nice breakout year for him. The bust of a first-round pick through his first 2 seasons is finally showing his worth. He had the longest probably touchdown of his career, and it was a great blitz beater, but the protection by Wentz, or protection by the O-line, the throw by Wentz and the catch by Aguilar, and he pulled the Deshaun Jackson there against the Cowboys when he moonwalked and fell backward into the end zone. So good for Nelson Aguilar, who has now a career high in touchdowns. In 3 years, he only had 2 in his first couple years. Now he has 3. And with this Eagles offense, it looks spectacular. It's the 6th best offense in points and the 3rd best offense in yards. And this Eagles defense, it's had some trouble with the passing game, but the rushing defense is absolutely stellar. It is the 2nd best running defense in the National Football League. But they are taking on a Carolina Panther team that I have doubted, that I've gotten wrong now 3 weeks in a row. I thought they would beat New Orleans. They got blown out by the Saints, and I thought they would lose to the Pats and the Lions. Dare to say they were able to play 2 very great and consistent games on offense by Cam Newton, who for only the 2nd time in his career had back-to-back 300-yard passing games. And Ed Dixon, that was not the real Ed Dixon that played on Sunday. That was a clone Ed Dixon, because Ed Dixon does not play that well that often. Ed Dixon had his highest yards per reception in NFL history for a tight end with a minimum of 5 receptions. He averaged 35 yards per catch in the game, and he was kind of the backbreaker for the team because everything else, Kelvin Benjamin had a nice big play. Kelvin Benjamin, who's dealing with a knee injury himself, is battling through some stuff, and defense got to Stafford 6 times. And Cam Newton's, completing over 70% of his passes the last couple games. So this Panthers team that, true, they're 4-1, and you could argue, well, if Stafford would have had more time, or if Stafford would have had another chance, they could have beat him, and if Brady had more time, they could have beat Brady could have beat Cam then, and they could be easily 2-3. But at the same time, give credit to the Carolina Panthers for playing, very good, solid, consistent football, especially on the offense. I also congratulate Christian McCaffrey for scoring his first ever NFL touchdown. And for the Panthers offense, this was probably the most impressive. Going into Sunday, the Detroit Lions were tied with the Baltimore Ravens for forcing the most turnovers on defense. The Carolina Panthers did not commit a single offensive turnover. But with that being said, this game is so great, and it was great that those two teams played so well on Sunday to really kind of separate themselves in the NFC. But I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers here for a couple reasons. One, I keep doubting the Panthers, and they keep proving me wrong. So in this instance, I've been more impressed with the Panthers' strength of victory against teams, because beating the Patriots and beating the Lions is more impressive to me than what the Eagles have done so far. And they also beat the Bills, who was a 3-2 team. The Eagles have beaten a average Cardinal team that's really below average. They beat a winless Giants team. They beat a decent Washington team, and then they beat the Chokers, who are 1-4. So I'm going to take the Panthers' strength of victory there. They've looked more impressive. They're on home field, which I think is important in this kind of instance where the teams are even. And the third thing is for me, Lane Johnson, who went out early in the game, who he has a head injury, and Doug Peterson's already said it could be a long shot that he plays Thursday, is not expected to play. And that matters to Eagles fans. They paid attention to that notion of the offensive line. Lane Johnson was 5-1 in the 6 games he played for the offensive line for the Eagles last year. When he was suspended those 10 games, they only went 2-8. And Carolina's won 2 of the last 3 games. I believe they won the last time in Carolina against this team. But I'm going to take the Panthers here. Like I said, I trust this front 7. The secondary will have its issues because Carson Wentz, while he's playing, he can, take advantage of the Kirk Coleman's going down. They signed Jarius Byrd. They have James Bradbury, and the other corner that I can't name off the top of my head. And they're not really that impressive, really. The Lions got a couple of big PI penalties on them. I think the Eagles receivers could do the same thing. But I'm just going to take the Panthers here because I trust that Panther team that on a short week they'll be able to kind of, with that defense, provide enough pressure on that line where Wentz won't look as good. Would I be surprised if the Philadelphia Eagles won this game? Not at all. Because the Philadelphia Eagles have played more solid offensively throughout the whole year, and they still have a good defensive line. They've showed that even with the injuries, they still can win football games. But what it comes down to is the Panthers have a little more loaded talent. Cam's feeling confident. It's a short week for the road team to go to Carolina, and Carolina should be able to kind of, feel confident they can win and grind out a game against the Eagle team that is dealing with a few injuries, and maybe the injuries for this Thursday alone against this opponent will catch up to them to get the Panthers to 5-1 and definitely into the conversation as one of the 2 best teams in the NFC and possibly a top 5 team in the NFL. So that's why I like Carolina here, -3, and Carolina straight up. Next game, the Atlanta Falcons over the Miami Dolphins. This is fairly easy for me, for everybody that's really picking games. The Miami Dolphins offense has been absolutely horrible over the last 3 weeks. They have only put up 1 or less offensive touchdowns in their last 3 games, and 2 of them were losses. So I do want to congratulate Rashad Jones, who got that awkward fumble that the refs waited about another 30 seconds to call. He scored his first defensive touchdown since Week 7 of the 2015 season. And with this Dolphins thing, look, they've had a lot of issues with injuries. Jay Cutler threw about, 90 yards and won the game. So the offense wasn't that great. Jay Ajayi, who ran for 122 yards in Week 1. Through the last 3 games, he's run only for 139 yards. So that's nowhere near as good as he was in Week 1. Jarvis Landry has had 3 straight games of under 50 yards receiving, which is absurd because that is your biggest playmaker, especially when Devontae Parker went down of his ankle injury. He could play this weekend, which could help somewhat. Of how his offense is going, I just don't really feel that confident in. But I'm looking at the Miami Dolphins and just saying that they just got lucky, but they played a very happily and very pathetic Tennessee Titans offense that was led by Matt Castle. And I trusted Matt Castle. I thought after Matt Castle won the game against the Texans in a meaningless game, I thought, you know what, Matt Castle could, beat the Dolphins, who are about as lifeless and meek on offense as any team in the National Football League right now. But I was wrong, and I can admit that. And also just the Dolphins, they had to fire their offensive line coach, who looked like he was snorting some cocaine at the job. So I can understand why he did. He should have been fired, really, but he resigned. So they did it the classy way. And I look at this Dolphins team and that just looked like more of a fluke victory than anything really impressive. But they got the win. They're 500, so and they got their first home win. Though Cody Parkey, he's had a rough time his last 2 games in Miami. He has gone the last 2 games in Miami. He's gone 2 of 3 in PATs and 4 of 7 in field goals. So playing in Miami is a rough thing for Cody Parkey. So let's see if that will continue the rest of this year. But for the Atlanta Falcons, they're coming off a bye. Though the last couple games they were in weeks 3 and 4, it was the first time since weeks 5 and 6 of the 2015 season the Falcons committed 3 offensive turnovers in back-to-back games, or 3 or more offensive turnovers in back-to-back games. Julio Jones went out of that game with a hip flexor, and Mohamed Sanu had a groin injury, which I do expect him to be out for a couple more weeks. And this is where this Falcons offense, with these struggles, they've dropped to now 18th in points and 10th in yards, which is nowhere near where they were last year at this time, where they were putting up points out the wazoo. And also, they haven't been able to cause that many turnovers. The Falcons defense has the 5th fewest interceptions in the NFL. But looking at this Falcons-Dolphins matchup, I just look at Atlanta and say, you don't need really Sanu. I think Jones could play. After having another week off, he should be able to play. And just with the offense, Matt Ryan should be able to move the ball with Hooper and Toilolo at the tight end spots. Freeman and Coleman will be a mismatch nightmare for the Dolphins linebackers. They have Kiko, but Lawrence Timmons is kind of older, and he doesn't seem as interested playing for the Dolphins. And I have no faith. The Dolphins played so weak offensively, they got lucky because of their defense, and I don't think this Dolphins defense can make enough plays against the Falcons offense to where the Bills, they had Jordan Matthews, they had LaShawn McCoy, and they were able to control the offense enough to win the game with the turnovers. If the Dolphins get a turnover too, I have no faith that Jay Cutler can capitalize on those turnovers to get points. This should be a lopsided game, and here's my other fun little fact from this game. The Atlanta Falcons, the last time they won in Miami, and I know this is an AFC NFC matchup, so this is a little misguided, was September 21st, 1980. So the Miami Dolphins haven't gone into Atlanta and won in over 37 years. So this game could be interesting if the Dolphins, found some life. All of a sudden their giant can start running. I don't really expect that. But that's why I like the Atlanta Falcons here, minus 11, and the Atlanta Falcons straight up. The next game, the Ravens over the Bears. The Baltimore Ravens, you know what? I will gladly take all the egg on my face from that game. We were just clearly the better team last week in Oakland. Our defense, was able to capitalize on an E.J. Manuel-led offense. We got another turnover, our 12th of the season, which was returned for a pick six. Mike Wallace had 3 receptions for 133 yards. That's the 5th game of his career, the 5th game since 2009 where he's had 3 or less receptions of over 100 plus yards. That's the most of those kind of games out of any receiver in the NFL since 2009. And the Ravens offense, you know what I will give us credit for, even though we were working with a patchwork offensive line, we've been able to run the ball effectively. Okay, yes, you can throw out the Jags game because we got all those yards in garbage time. However, I look at how the Ravens, played. They played a solid running game. Vince Mayo got a touchdown. Buck Allen got a touchdown, and Tucker, made 4 solid, consistent field goals. And I would congratulate Alex Collins, where he's at 50-plus yards in 3-plus games. And with Terrence West now out for this week, we re-signed Bobby Rainey. But I tend to say if we had a number one running back, it would be Alex Collins, who's played decently for the limited amount of touches that he's had. But I look at this Baltimore-Chicago game, and I saw the Monday night game last night. Trubisky, I would give him a C. He had a lot of, he showed his athleticism. He has much more athleticism than Mike Lennon does. He showed that he can, zip the ball, and especially when he threw on first down. I think he had like 8 of 17 from first down. But there were definitely moments when he, threw the ball in the dirt. He couldn't really feel the rush. He threw some balls high, some balls low, and, again, that's what a rookie does. So there's more optimism in Chicago. But, he did throw that killer interception to Harrison Smith that basically iced the game for the Vikings. But for the Bears, you know what? You found a quarterback that did not look bad. He did not look like Jared Goff last year that we thought. And I do think when John Fox goes, if they get an offensive coaching staff in there, they could work with him to be more effective than he could be. But Trubisky in his first game, I'll give him a C. He did, well with what he had to do. He made, rookie mistakes, but that'll happen. And I think it'll be a positive trend upward for them long term. However, the Bears are going to Baltimore, and the Bears have shown this year that they are a very good home team, that they can basically beat anybody at home, but they can't beat anybody on the road. They've been outscored 64-21 in their 2 road games this season, and they've committed at least 4 turnovers in each of their 2 road games. I don't think Trubisky and that offense will commit 4 turnovers, but I do expect 1 or 2, which will be a huge difference for the Baltimore Ravens. Even though, again, you have Tariq Cohen, who's been a very good dual threat going into the game. I forgot to add some of the numbers up. He had 34 carries for 181 yards and 24 catches for 150 yards. So the Ravens don't have to worry about that dual-headed monster that the Chicago Bears have. But I'm going to take the Ravens here just because this is, Trubisky going into a situation, his first road start. Harbaugh's, over the years has done pretty well against rookie quarterbacks. Our defense has done pretty well. We beat DeShone Kizer earlier this year. And I just think, again, it's going to be another one of those grind-out games that Baltimore will have in order to get a big-time win. Or to get another win to keep momentum forward. Maybe not big time. But I am going to take the Bears here plus 7 because I just can't trust this Ravens team. We're playing Trubisky, but he didn't look bad. And after kind of the confidence of 1 week on the road, hopefully we can build that into another solid home game in Baltimore. But who knows? So we'll see. But I'm going to take the Chicago Bears here plus 7 just because I saw enough out of Trubisky to say that they could stick around in the game much longer than people are thinking just because, again, it's Trubisky's first road start and only the second start of his career. So that's why I like Chicago plus 7. But I'm going to take the Ravens straight up. The next game, the Texans over the Browns. The Cleveland Browns have just been god-awful in the last 2 years. In the last 3+ seasons combined, they are 2-30 in their last 32 games. So the last 3 seasons, but over the last 3 seasons, the last 2 full seasons, they are 2-30 in their last 32 games. It has just been god-awful, and they should have beaten the New York Jets. They should have. They had a missed field goal that was huge, and they had the weird option touchdown. Then Kizer throws an interception in the red zone. So there's arguably anywhere between 3-17, and then if you add there's 9 to 17 points that are lost by the Browns' own failures and stupidity. So, and again, they only won the game. They only lost the game by 3 points, so they should have won that game. I feel bad for DeShone Kizer. I think Hugh Jackson made a dumb move by benching him this early. I know he's leading the league in interceptions. I know he's been having a rough span. I know that, option play was bad. But at this point, and without Kevin Hogan played, and Kevin Hogan this year, in the time he's played, he has completed 68.4% of his passes, 377 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. You got to let Kevin Hogan at this point have the reins. And DeShone Kizer, I believe, now has just officially cemented himself as number 27. And Kevin Hogan's not the answer, because Kevin Hogan, if he plays longer than maybe a half or a quarter and a half, he's going to show these Kevin Hogan, the backup quarterback at Stanford, that nobody wanted. And the Browns offense, they really can't run the ball. Duke Johnson is their leading rusher and their leading receiver. Coleman's had a hand injury. Kenny Britt's done absolutely nothing for them. is it his fault? No. But they're playing a Houston team that, yes, they lost. They don't have right now Brian Cushing, who's on suspension, and they lost their two most predominant pass rushers in Whitney Merciless and J.J. Watt. They've had the most sacks as a duo over the last 4 seasons than any other duo, or since 2012, than any duo in that span. And it really sucks for J.J. Watt because last year he had a huge back injury that forced him to miss 13 games, and now this tibial plateau fracture in his left leg, he's going to take him out another year. And again, I would still keep J.J. Watt because he's still playing, but at this point you're going to look at that contract and go, we put too much money in a guy that at his age and size is not going to be the same, and we're never going to get the same J.J. Watt that we had for those first 5 years, which is one of the best defensive players I have ever seen in my lifetime, one of the best defensive players ever in National Football League history. But the good news is for the Houston Texans, their offense has come alive with this rookie quarterback from Clemson, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson tied the rookie NFL record with 5 touchdown passes in the game. The other 3 rookies that did it was Ray Bovid, Matthew Stafford, and Jameis Winston were the only 3 other rookie quarterbacks that threw 5 touchdowns in a single game. He's thrown 9 touchdowns in 2 games. That's an NFL record for a rookie. And he's put up the most points in 2 games in Houston Texans franchise history. 91 points his offense has been able to get scored. And with his legs, the running game with Lamar Miller and Dante Foreman have been able to find a good ground and be decent. But the biggest beneficiary of Deshaun Watson's rise is wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins from Clemson, who himself has 35 receptions for 363 yards and 5 touchdowns. He has almost nearly double the targets, nearly double the yards, and the only guy that has more touchdowns right now in the National Football League is Jordy Nelson. And Houston's won 5 of the last 6 games in this series. And just looking at it, the Browns, I just don't know what they're going to do offensively. They look meek. I do want to give a shout out to Myles Garrett, who had the most sacks in an NFL debut since the stat was first started in 1982. He had 2 sacks in his debut, including the first ever snap he played. So kudos to Myles Garrett there. But this Houston offense, yes, that defense, with Kevin Hogan or Kaiser, they're going to have probably a better opportunity than if those 3 guys were playing. But with just how inept that can be, and with the talent that hasn't really been playing well, I don't really see it metastasizing like that. And I just see the Texans just being able to put up at least another 30 on this Browns defense, just because of how Deshaun Watson playing and the talent they have. If the Browns can score, if this Texans defense is that bad about those 3 guys playing, that's going to be a concern for later on, and we could have a shootout. But in a shootout, I'll trust the rookie kid with a bright future with DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, who's making plays, Lamar Miller, and other receivers, instead of the Cleveland Browns offense that basically has David Njoku and Duke Johnson, and that's it. So that's all I like the Houston Texans here, -10, and the Houston Texans straight up. Next game, Packers over Vikings. Aaron Rodgers, the man, the discount double-check master himself. Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady this year are the only 2 QBs that have led game-winning drives within the final minute of a game. And Aaron Rodgers, he likes playing in Dallas, Texas. He's won all 3 of his games in Dallas, Texas, Super Bowl 45, the 2016 divisional round game, and on Sunday against the Cowboys again. And those games have been shootouts, those games have been close. Those 3 games, his team has won by an average of 4.3 or 4.33 points per game. And in those 3 games, Aaron Rodgers completed 68.9% of his passes for 880 yards, 8 touchdowns to 1 interception. That's elite quarterbacking there by one of the best that's ever done it. And since 2014, Aaron Rodgers has 4 passing touchdowns within the final 30 seconds. That's the most in the NFL. And I would congratulate Demarius Randall, who has had the last 2 pick sixes for the Green Bay Packers over the last 3 seasons. The other time he did it, I believe, was Week 14 or Week 15 of 2015 when he picked off Derek Carr for a pick 6. And they won that game 30-20. Also, another bright spot for the Packers is Aaron Jones, the 3rd-round pick out of UTEP. He ran for about, I believe, 137 yards, somewhere around 130 yards, and he is now the third running back to do that against the Cowboys defense this year. Just a fun fact for the Cowboys fans, you didn't allow a 100-yard rusher of any kind at all last year. So that kind of shows the importance of Sean Lee to that defense and some of the other talent that you've lost. And then when you look at the Minnesota Vikings, they just look, hapless. The defense is, they look hapless offensively. Sam Bradford, the wind knocks him down. Bradford looked absolutely pathetic once again. He didn't look healthy. He really never does. But he didn't look healthy. He looked scared. He looked timid. And, when he took that safety in the end zone, he was standing in the pocket for 5 seconds. And the fact that he can't run basically just made him a sitting duck. He should have just sat down on his butt in the end zone, and because he just knew that he couldn't make a throw. But Sam Bradford played horribly, and the Vikings can't wait to get Teddy Bridgewater back. And Case Keenum did his job. Case Keenum, again, has shown over the last 3 weeks, he's shown more upside than downside in this offense compared to Sam Bradford. Yes, is Sam Bradford a better pure quarterback in terms of just throwing the football? Yes, but in terms of football situations, Case Keenum's proven to be more durable, and Case Keenum just proven in this Vikings offense under Pat Shurmur, even healthy or not, or if you can play or not, Bradford's looked, this year much more like meek. And Keenum, through at least, the 4 games, was able to move the ball, make some timely throws, get throws to Thielen and Rudolph and Diggs, who had a groin injury himself, so he was out majority of the game. And I just think, again, they need to start Case Keenum this weekend against the Green Bay Packers. Even if Bradford tries to say he's healthy, he's really not. And even if he was healthy, I think Case Keenum, through, I know Bradford beat up the Saints defense. Good for him. Bravo. And that's pretty important, but that's one game. Case Keenum has shown this year, and even if Bradford couldn't finish in a half, that he was able to do things against the Bears defense that Sam Bradford could not. Is the Packers defense as good as the Saints or the Bears defense? That's debatable in some ways, and definitely some in some others. But I'm taking the Green Bay Packers here because I do not trust who's going to be a quarterback for the Vikings, and even if Keenum is the guy that starts, who at this point I believe provides a better chance than Sam Breakable Bradford, the Green Bay Packers should win because this is a revenge game from last year where Sam Bradford had the best game of his career with 280 yards and 2 touchdowns, or 2 or 3 touchdowns against the Packers. They remember that from last year. They're going to use that as motivation. And just looking at the Packers, they're just going to continue to prove that, up to the postseason when they have to play better teams, just ride Aaron Rodgers' right arm to victory. Sounds like the Green Bay Packers here against the spread and straight up. The next game, Saints over Lions. This is a game where, for me, the Detroit Lions, they really dropped the ball in a game that I thought that they could have, got a nice, decisive win at least, but a good win over, a motivated Panther team. And now this Lions mojo that they had all of last year, it's bit them in the butt now in 2 consecutive home games against NFC South teams. That's the second straight home game for the Lions against the NFC South in their 2 games that they had a chance. They were making a comeback, but then Stafford either couldn't connect, or Panthers, the Super Cam and the Panthers offense shut down the Lions' opportunity. And Matt Stafford, he's banged up. He got sacked 6 times. He has a hamstring strain and a sprained ankle. So that's a horrible combination. And this Lions team also can't run the ball. I found this amazing. It's kind of like Indianapolis Cup over the last couple of years. The Lions right now have the longest active streak without a 100-yard rusher. They've gone 57 or 58 straight games without a 100-yard rusher. The last one to do it was Reggie Bush back on Thanksgiving in 2014. So though Matt Stafford has won his previous 2 games in the Superdome, I think if he plays, he's going to be hobbled. And that Saints defense, it's been more impressive. The Saints defense, they had their first shutout since Week 15 of the 2012 season when they shut out Tampa Bay 41-0 that year. And I've just seen the Saints team, and, I think maybe for the Saints, the one thing they needed was confidence. And the Saints over the last 2 weeks, after, shutting out after holding the Panthers to 13 points, or in the last 2 weeks they put up 60 points. It's really got to give them some confidence that they can play decent enough defense with an offense that's loaded, even though they just traded Adrian Peterson to the Arizona Cardinals for a conditional pick. The Saints team can, make some noise and play pretty good. Drew Brees over the last 2 games, he's completed 72.9% of his passes for 488 yards, 5 TDs, no interceptions. Michael Thomas has about 15 receptions for about 160 yards and about 2 touchdowns, so he's earned to make plays. And the Saints are motivated because they've lost their last 3 straight games against this Lions team. And I'm just going to take the Saints here for, again, 3 reasons. 1, they are coming off a bye. 2, their defense is playing better through 4 weeks, and I feel like they've gained some confidence. 3, Matt Stafford is going to be hobbling at least, and if he doesn't play, the Lions are screwed. But the reason why I'm taking the Lions here against the spread, because I will give Stafford enough credit that he can play on a gimpy leg enough to keep it within a 3 or 4 point game. Because these 2 teams have, played each other over the last few years, and Stafford's really gotten the better of Brees over the last couple times. It should be an interesting game. I hope Stafford plays just for the entertainment, but for the pick-wise, I hope whoever their backup is, I don't know the guy's name, Kellen Moore, I guess. Well, no, not Kellen Moore. Jake Rudock, there we go. He plays, so the Lions, can't win. I'm going to take the Saints here. The defense is playing better. They're more confident. I trust that they're at home, coming off a bye, and Matt Stafford's not 100%. Those 3 combinations there give me the confidence to take the New Orleans Saints to beat the Detroit Lions, but I'll take the Detroit Lions plus 4.5 because if Stafford plays, that's enough. That shows enough respect there for Stafford that he can't keep them in this game. All right, the next game, Patriots over Jets. I'm taking the New England Patriots here. I'm going to congratulate Bill Belichick. He won his 32nd. He has now won in every NFL stadium across the country. And Tom Brady has now tied Peyton Manning and Brett Favre for the most regular season wins in NFL history at 186. And again, you look at how the Patriots played. The Patriots were lucky that the Tampa Bay offense could not hit, because there were at least 3 to 6 plays that Mike Evans dropped, Jameis Winston overthrew, Deshaun Jackson dropped, Cameron Brate dropped a touchdown on Patrick Chung, which is a great play by him, and he probably had the best defensive game out of anybody yesterday on Thursday for the Patriots. And I think one of the bigger problems this year is Dante Scarnecchia, which kind of the offensive line adjustments, has had a rough time. Brady's been sacked now the 6th most by any other quarterback, and he's already gotten sacked more than all he did last year. He's gotten sacked 16 times this year. He only got sacked 15 times last year. But here's the thing, like, the Patriots, it's still kind of trusting the process, and they're playing a Jet team that at this point is on cloud 9. They have really nothing else to prove, or, they really have nothing else to, lose by playing, good football. People are, they don't have their hopes up. They were just happy that they won 3 straight games. It's the first time since 2015 they've done that. I think McCown, that may be the first time ever in his career, or since the last week when I told you, that he's won 3 straight games as a starting quarterback. And the Jets defense, it's 15th in points. And that's with losing a Darrelle Revis. That's with losing a Marcus Gilchrist. That's with losing all these players. Sheldon Richardson's gone. And Todd Bowles is coaching his butt off. He deserves some Coach of the Year candidacy right now through 5 weeks, because it's an absolute miracle that the New York Jets are 3-2 at this point. And, Bilal Powell went down, and they found this guy named Elijah McGuire, who has 113 yards over the last 2 games. And Chandler Catanzaro is making field goals. He made the 2nd longest field goal of his career, the 57-yarder, which I believe gave them the lead going into the half, which is crucial, which was huge for the game. And also, they forced the 3 turnovers. They forced the 2 red zone turnovers and the missed field goal, while the Browns kind of helped them in their cause as well. But I'm going to take the Patriots here just because it's the New England Patriots. Like, if Atlanta can play well, that might be the first game where I don't take the Patriots. Just out of confidence, routine. But I'm going to take the Patriots here just because This Pats team, it looks solid offensively, and this defense, it should hopefully be able to gain some more confidence going up against Josh McCown. Who, if they can stop the Pats, if they can stop the Bucs with Winston, Evans, Jackson, Brate, Howard, Doug Martin, and Jacquizz Rodgers to only 14 points, they definitely can stop the Jets for at least the same amount, maybe a little bit less, to get them the win with an offense that's playing above average but not Patriot potential. But I'm going to take the Jets here plus 9.5 because, like I said earlier, the Patriots have had a horrible time covering over a touchdown spread, and I'm going to take the Jets here just because I think the Jets, it's a division rival, and they'll wake up to make it within a one score, or to make it within under a 10-point game. So that's why I like the New York Jets here plus 9.5, but the New England Patriots straight up. The next game, Redskins over Niners. The San Francisco 49ers become the first team since the 1994 Houston Oilers to lose 4 straight games by 3 points or less. So this is a Niner team that's kind of gotten the LA Charger choking syndrome in them, because that is unbelievable. Ray Armstrong got a huge pick off Jacoby Brissett in the red zone, and they still couldn't capitalize off of that. One interesting thing that happened in that game, though, was the benching of Carlos Hyde for portions of that game. He only had 8 carries for 11 yards. Well, Matt Breida had a pretty good game. He had more opportunities and carries. And also they benched apparently Navarro Bowman for a stretch during the game. So I think that is kind of a weird precedent there to see that. But, and Shanahan said that he basically was going with the hot hand with benching Hyde. I don't really get the Bowman was, unless they're trying to trade him, which could make sense because he's had a injury history over the last few years. And I want to congratulate Marquise Goodwin for having a career high in receiving yards with 116 receiving yards. But with the Niners' woes come the Washington Redskins, who are coming off a bye, coming off a tough game, really a 3-point game. It was really a 9-point game against the Kansas City Chiefs. 4 to 5 players on the Redskins team went down during that game. The biggest one was Josh Norman, who was going to be out 4 weeks with a rib injury. And Kirk Cousins, he played well. He played a good game by Kirk Cousins standards. He had a big touchdown the prior, and he didn't have any turnovers. But he is now 0-5 in Monday night in primetime football, which kind of, well, I'm sorry, 0-5 in Monday Night Football. Not primetime, because it's really, he just beat Oakland. He's 0-5 on Monday Night Football. And, Washington's lost 4 straight against the Niners. But I feel like with this Washington team, just like with the Niners, it's going to be just kind of the same shtick. I think that the odds makers are giving the Redskins way too much credit, because this Niners team, it really hasn't lost that many people, and they're playing everybody either to the buzzer or into overtime. So 10 points is way too much for this Niner team that, easily, if the bad Kirk Cousins shows up, they could steal a win against the Redskins, and Shanahan could beat his former quarterback, or one of his former quarterbacks. This is going to be a fun game. I think this is going to be a good game. But I'm going to take the Washington Redskins here because the Redskins have been able to show that they've been able to close games and play more consistently and better against better competition, where the Niners, they just have shown that they continually have lost close games. And I'm going to go with the team that's won 2 games and look better against better competition than a team that constantly loses close games. But the fact that they lose close games gives me enough confidence to say that the Niners will cover the 10-point spread. So yeah, that's why I'm taking San Francisco plus 10, but the Washington Redskins straight up. The next game, the Buccaneers over the Cardinals. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, boy, have they had a rough time. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have only converted 66% of their field goals from last year. That is worst in the NFL. And that's why they signed Patrick Murray, who was a former kicker for theirs. I mean, the last place he was in before was Cleveland. And it's just kind of like with the Bucs, like you just get this weird inconsistency where they will have phenomenal games offensively, but then they'll have kind of the stinkers against the Patriots where you're like, you should have easily beaten this team. And yes, you can blame the kicker more than the offense, but the offense had 5 or 6 opportunities to make the game where Nick Folk didn't have to kick the game-winning field goal, or have the game-winning chances. And at this point, hopefully Patrick Murray can convert better for him. I also want to say happy NFL season debut for Doug Martin, who ran for 13 times for 74 yards and got the 1 touchdown, on the ground, which is pretty impressive. And, the the Bucs are motivated because the last time Tampa Bay went into Arizona was an absolute slaughter. They lost 40-7. Winston had 243 yards, 1 TD, 4 picks, and a fumble. And this Cardinal defense has shown it can play good at times. And Tampa, going into there, remember they're 4-4-1 in their last 8, road or home games. But just looking at Arizona, they were just awful. Fitzgerald, I do want to congratulate Larry Fitzgerald on the bright side. He had a reception in 200 straight game. He's now only the third wide receiver or tight end to have a catch in 200 straight games. The only other 2 guys are Tony Gonzalez and Jerry Rice. And Carson Palmer's, the offensive line's been absolutely atrocious. Palmer's been sacked the most times in the NFL at 19. But like I said earlier, just for the breaking news, Adrian Peterson is now headed to the desert to join the Arizona Cardinals. It's very Emmitt Smith-like to me when he joined the Cardinals after going to the Cowboys. And I guess here's the saddest thing. Even though Chris Johnson right now is the leading rusher, they have only scored 1 rushing touchdown the entire year, and that is to Kerwin Williams, who got it after David Johnson broke his wrist in week 1. This game could be close. They've split the last 4 games, and I'm not very sold on Tampa or Arizona at this point. But I've just seen Tampa play more consistent and better football compared to Arizona, where against the bad teams they struggle to win, and then against the good teams they get routinely beaten decisively. So with that in mind, maybe Arizona pulls off the upset and gets a win, but I'm going to take the Bucs here because they just look better. Both of them lost in ways, but at least Tampa lost in the heartbreaker compared to Arizona that just got absolutely rolled on. That's all I like Tampa Bay here, -2, and Tampa Bay straight up. Next game, the Rams over the Jags. The LA Rams are for real. Even though, again, they had their worst offensive game of the season, they were the number 1 offense going into the game. They averaged 35 points per game. The Seahawks held them to 10. They also committed 5 offensive turnovers, which was the first time since Week 14 of last year under Jeff Fisher, Fisher's final game, when they committed 5 offensive turnovers against the Atlanta Falcons. And here was a fun little stat I found out. Besides Week 2 of last year, since they have gone back to LA, they have gone 9 straight Los Angeles games, 9 straight Coliseum Los Angeles-based home games where they provided an offensive turnover to the other team. It's really 10 straight games because the London game was really a home game, but I said 9 because they were in Los Angeles. So I thought that was really interesting. Even though, again, the Rams, they showed a lot of fight and they had a chance to have the game winner, but Cooper Kupp dropped the potential game-winning touchdown. Going into the game, Jared Goff's passes were only dropped less than 1% of the time at 0.9%. So that's kind of how rare it's been this year. And also Tavon Austin, he's had a 5th straight year with a rushing touchdown, and he's had 5, and I believe no other wide receiver in any other year has 1 rushing touchdown. Tavon Austin's had at least 5. No other receiver over the last 5 years has more than 1. And, this Rams team, I've been really impressed. Their opponent on the other end, the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's the other way around. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I will give their defense a lot of credit. Doug Marrone and what he's done with that defense and just with that staff, it is really finally coming to pass. Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Boye have the lowest QB completion percentage of any cornerback duo in the NFL right now. They forced 5 turnovers, including 2 pick sixes, which is, for them as a whole team, that's the most they've had since Week 14 of the 2011 season when the Jags committed for 7 turnovers in 1 football game. And, the Jags, Blake Bortles is playing kind of like Flacco and all these other quarterbacks, not really having to do much to win. Just throw 5-yard routes because Fournette's going to get you 5 or 6 yards, and Leonard Fournette right now is leading the league in terms of total rushing yards, and he is tied for the rushing lead in touchdowns at 5 with Devontae Freeman. And here's another fun fact that I found out. Leonard Fournette became only the 3rd running back or 3rd player in against the Pittsburgh Steelers in NFL history to have a 90-plus yard rushing touchdown against them. The other 2 players were O.J. Simpson in 1971 and Terrell Pryor in 2013. And while the Rams have won 3 of the 4 games against the Jags, I'm going to take the Rams here because there's a 3-2 team. These are 2 3-2 teams. There's a major difference, though. The Rams are a good 3-2 team all around. The Jags have a 3-2 defense, but their offense sucks. They're also playing at home, which they rarely win home games, or they've won a very small percentage of home games in Jacksonville over the years, and it's an even week. This year, the Jags blow up the Texans week 1. The next game, they get blown out by the Titans. The next week, in odd week, they blow out the Ravens. Even week, they choke against the Jets. Odd week, they blow out the Pittsburgh Steelers. Even week, it's even week, so don't expect the Jags to win. Maybe the Jags get it together and somehow win 2 games. You know, like I said last week, they only get 2 games once a year over the last couple of years. Maybe they get it this week and get to 4-3, 4-2, which would be nuts. But I'm taking the Rams here. Much better overall team, and I just have confidence in them. So that's why I like the LA Rams here, plus 2.5, and the LA Rams straight up. Next game, Steelers at Chiefs. Ben Roethlisberger threw 5 interceptions. That's career high for him, and that's the second time he's thrown 2 pick sixes. The other time was in Oakland in 2006, and he was the first quarterback since a quarterback named Mark back in 1987 threw 5 picks as well in a game. And here's the thing. I think it was weird because the Jags, like I just mentioned before in the last game, they had the number 1 defense in terms against the pass. Against the run, the Jags were one of the worst running defenses in the NFL, and Le'Veon Bell only had 15 carries. And Antonio Brown has 25 more receptions and 341 more yards than any other wide receiver on the team. Though, you know what's amazing? You know how many touchdowns AB has? 1. 1 touchdown. Jesse James is really leading the team with 2. And, this defense, when you get those many turnovers and just the inconsistencies, it's not really that good. And unfortunately for the Steelers, they're playing the most consistent football team in the National Football League right now in the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs have, won 27 of the last 31 football games. And Alex Smith is playing the best football of his career. He's the MVP of the NFL through 5 weeks. He's tied the NFL record for most consecutive touchdown passes to start a year without a pick at 11. Kareem Hunt is leading the league in rushing and is only the second Kareem Hunt is leading the league in scrimmage yards of 123.1 per game, and he's only the second running back to have 5 straight games start a career with 100-plus scrimmage yards to start out. So that's incredible. They're the top offense in points and second in yards, and this defense, is still playing well. This is without an Eric Berry. This is without a Tamba Ali. This is without, D Ford that's been out for a few weeks. So you look at this Chiefs team, they have depth, they're consistent, and they play really good football. So I just look at this game and say, I thought this game was going to be really close going into last week. But after seeing how Pittsburgh played against the Jags, I feel much more confident in the Chiefs just getting this win outright. It's kind of a special moment for the Chiefs because this is the 2-year anniversary of that moment from when they started this winning streak, or this run. Because their first game to start this 27-4 run was against the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. It was Landry Jones. And though the Steelers have lost 5 of the last 6 games against the Steelers, this time around they're going to get their redemption from last year and win a good game and prove that they're still the best team in the NFL by a mile. It should be a fun game. I'm interested to see how Pittsburgh does, because if you remember last year, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they got blown out by the Eagles in Week 3, 34-3, and everybody was wondering, are the Steelers in trouble? Are they? And again, you know what happened? The next week they host Kansas City, and they blew them out, 42-14. Ben Roethlisberger had 300 yards passing and 5 touchdowns that game. I do not see the Chiefs getting blown out this time, or even losing. However, I do expect the Pittsburgh Steelers as an entire team, because when they face adversity, they respond very well, to play much better as a team and provide a much more respectable game against the Chiefs than people are thinking after last week. And also, one final thing, the Chiefs have been able to cover the spread in every one of their games this year, so I'm just going to keep rolling with that. And that's why I like the Kansas City Chiefs here, minus 4.5, and Kansas City straight up. Next game, Broncos over Giants. The Giants have no one. That's why I'm taking the Denver Broncos to win this game. All right, and finally, the Monday Night Football game. And I guess sorry for all the stat stuff, but let's just be honest. When you lose David Harris for the year, Brandon Marshall for the year, Odell Beckham for the year, and you have Sterling Shepard, who's likely going to be out with an ankle sprain. You have nobody. You have Roger Lewis and a bunch of scrubs. They can't run the ball. Olivier Vernon's hurt. They can't stop anybody. And the Giants' offense right now, I put Davis Webb in there. That's it. The Giants have nobody. Like, if this spread was 20 points, I would take the Denver Broncos. I am going to be shocked that if this game doesn't get moved. But I'm because it is that bad. It's that much of a mismatch right now. But I'm taking the Denver Broncos here, just because the Giants have no one. That's it. So that's like Denver here, minus 11.5. And Denver straight up. And finally, the Colts over the Titans. The Colts, I'm going to congratulate Adam Vinatieri. He's made the second most field goals of all time, passing Gary Patterson. And it was his 21st game-winning kick. Marlon Mack, who's, I'm kind of angry he's taking Frank Gore's carries because I have Gore in fantasy. But Marlon Mack, last game at 91 yards rushing and a touchdown. And Jacoby Brissett's not playing bad. He has 60.7% completion percentage, 997 yards, 5 total touchdowns, 2 passing, 3 rushing, and 3 interceptions. And they're playing a Titans team that just last week, Book Castle, was inept. And in those last 3 games, they've had 7 total touchdowns by those guys. They're also 1-3 in those games. And here's the kicker for me: the Titans have lost 11 straight games to the Colts, 11. And I just feel with this Colts team that even if Mariota plays, he just somehow can't be able to beat this Colts team for some weird reason. But if he doesn't play, which I don't expect him to, Brissett can do enough to win this game and put the Titans back in position in the AFC South. So that is it. That's why I like the Colts here straight up, or against the spread and straight up. And those are my picks for this week. So like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page for all your other different progs like Geo Knows, Hatbox, Keith Bailey, Hatbox Nation, Billy B, Bridgewater's Finest, Logan Schiff, all those guys and gals. And that's it. So good luck to all players, teams, coaches, fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators. Until next week, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. Till then, so long.